Adventure Time is my favorite show ever. But unlike most fans, upon the release of the new Adventure Time miniseries Fionna and Cake, I was a bit skeptical of how well written the story would be and how nicely it would fit into Adventure Time's catalog. This year has been plagued with many subpar, nostalgia-bait reboots and spin-offs of other popular shows and movies, and I didn't want this trend to infect my favorite story. Not to mention, I was never really a big fan of the Fionna and Cake episodes in the original series itself. It was cute the first time, but the same gimmick never appealed to me in concurrent episodes. With this in mind, I had no idea how the writers would tackle an entire miniseries based off of these fairly shallow characters. To my surprise, I was completely mistaken. I absolutely love this show. In fact, I think Fionna and Cake is stronger as a miniseries than Distant Lands was. I couldn't help but think, how were they able to pull this off? How could the writers create such an amazing original story that fits so perfectly into Adventure Time's existing world, all while using characters that never were that strong to begin with? The answer is the world building. Adventure Time successfully built such a dynamic and consistent world that basically anything can be done with it. One of the easiest ways Adventure Time has successfully built a strong world is through the episodic nature of the series. Since the show doesn't follow a linear plot structure most of the time, the viewer never really knows what to expect of the adventures the characters get themselves into. In fact, there's even a fair chance that our main characters Finn and Jake won't even be in an episode at all. It's easy to innovate a world when you're not tied down to one plot structure throughout the entirety of a series, and Adventure Time takes this to a new extreme by really maximizing the potential of its episodic nature. One-off characters could have an entire 12-minute episode blocked to themselves and an entirely new part of OO that no one has ever seen before. The crew makes sure to always stay true to the adventure in Adventure Time by showing new parts of the world and new aspects of each character, even the smallest ones, in every episode. These boundless adventures simply would not be possible in a non-episodic setting. Adventure Time has an incredible balance between established rules for its world and boundless creative freedom. It's easy to get shoehorned into one type of storyline if there are too many hard and fast rules for your world, but Adventure Time has mastered the art of balancing absurd creativity and sensical structure. It does this best through the way it sets up expectations for character development. Almost every character in the show, whether it's Finn or Banana Man, gets some form of development or enhancement to their character and storylines, even if it doesn't come back up for many seasons later. It makes the world feel lived in, like the characters are real people in this world. Adventure Time is so good at bringing its world to life that it strikes Sonder in the viewer, making fans take in the complex lives these little side characters are going through behind the scenes. This expectation makes it easy for the viewer to accept that a character like Mr. Fox could reasonably become OO's death. Adventure Time has made it the norm to explore every character's life, backstory, and relationship with the world. At the same time, there's clear consistency with lore as well as rules and structure to keep things believable. It's easy to be as creative as you want with how these characters interact with the setting. It's not completely unreasonable for Ice King's shallow fanfic characters to actually be complex, multifaceted actors on the entire space-time continuum of Adventure Time's world. However, there are still rules to corral this creative energy, like the fact that Prismo isn't allowed to make other worlds on a whim in the first place, or the fact that he works for an intergalactic organization that upholds the structure of the multiverse. I find that the stories with the best world building are ones like Adventure Time that seemingly balance order and creativity exceptionally well. Adventure Time's creators have also made it normal for the most important main characters to interact with the smaller side characters in completely different ways. It's exceedingly common for side characters in stories to fulfill their purpose within that part of the narrative and never appear again. By giving these characters that would, in most cases, only appear once another chance to shine in a different part of the world, there are entirely new facets and possibilities of the narrative that can be unearthed. Instead of introducing a new character as a plot device to just quickly build upon the world, a pre-existing character that was foreshadowed to have more lore can easily be used as a tool to expound upon your world building, while also believably adding to the story itself. It's also easy for the audience to connect with the characters and the new world since we already have previous experience with them. This is what helped make Fionna and Cake so likable for me. Their connection with Simon and Prismo, two already beloved characters with lofty roles in Adventure Time's story, made it easy for me to get invested in them and their world. I organically grew more connected to these characters that I previously wasn't a fan of because of the way their portion of the story was tied to a part I knew and loved. As the mini-series went on, I find myself growing more interested in Fionna and Cake's journey on its own, and not as a piece of Simon's journey. And the reason for this is the way they introduced their story with Simon from the get-go. Now if I were to watch another Fionna and Cake season without Simon's involvement, I'd be excited and invested to explore their adventures on their own. Even more impressive was the fact that Fionna and Cake's connection to fan-favorite characters wasn't done in a nostalgia-baity way. Simon wasn't a part of the story to merely exist as Simon. He had personal baggage that was never solved after the end of the main series. His character's story arc wasn't yet over. Simon truly didn't learn anything about letting go of Betty at the end of the original series, so it only made sense for him to continue struggling after the end of the main events. Prismo's addition to the series also made logical sense due to his connection to the multiverse. Any other show that was merely trying to grab the attention of old fans would stick a character like Simon or Prismo in there for no reason other than to remind viewers of the nostalgia they had for the series. Adventure Time's writers are so good at tastefully utilizing nostalgia as a way to immerse fans, while also keeping these characters true to the world that they live in. The strength of Adventure Time's world building and the characters placed within the world is an incredible feat that even the best stories will never accomplish. I'm so happy I can trust the creators of Adventure Time to maintain the integrity and quality of the original show with their new material. Hopefully the next season of Fionna and Cake is just as exciting and incredible as the first one.